Hello everyone, so this is the summary of the poem The Prologue by Annie Bradstreet. So these are the important details about the poet. Annie Bradstreet was born in 1612 in England. She was the daughter of a Puritan. She emigrated to America with her husband. She was one of the first poets to write English poems in America. Her poems were taken to England by her brother in law, who did not reveal her about the publication of her poems in 1650 as 10th Muse lately sprung up in America. Her rest of the poems were published after her death. Introduction. This poem explores the poet's insecurities and struggles to establish an identity of a poet in a patriarchal society. Here she compares her writing skills with man's. She feels upset with the fact that at that time women were discouraged to write poems because that field was dominated by men only in 17th century. In this poem, the poet glorifies works of art. She admires the works of French writer Batasse and Greek writer Homer. She also exposes the inequality that she experiences as a female poet in the literary field. She wants to be recognized and acknowledged as a poet in the literary field, the area which was dominated by men only. Another theme of the poem is proto feminism, that means talking about feminist issues before feminism was popular. The poet is representing the women writers of her time whose efforts and skills in writing were not appreciated as compared to men's. So, this is the text of the poem. To sing of wars, of captains, and of kings, of cities founded, commonwealths begun, for my mean pan are two superior things, or how they all or each their dates have run. Let poets and historians set these forth, my obscure lines shall not so dim their worth. So, when the poem opens, the speaker talks about her struggle to be recognized as a female poet in the field of literature. She says that she is not going to write about heroic and noble subjects like writing about wars, captains, or kings. She is also not going to write about the important things like beginning of civilizations and cities. She says that these subjects are popular in her time, but she says that she is not skilled enough to write about such topics. Being a woman, she thinks that such topics can be tackled by men only. She says that such topics should be written by male poets and historians, and her obscure lines are not going to lessen the worth of such noble and high subjects. But when my wandering eyes and envious heart, great Berta's sugared lines do but read over, fool I do grudge, the muses did not part, twixt him and me that overfluent store. A Bertas can do what a Bertas will, but simple I according to my skill. So, in these lines, the speaker says that when she reads the works written by great French writer Bertas, then she feels jealous that she cannot write like him. She thinks that muses have not inspired her to improve her writing skills. Next, she says that she is satisfied with the subjects about which she is writing. She feels that her work is simple as compared to other great poets and writers. From schoolboy's tongue no rhetoric we expect, nor yet a sweet consort from a broken strings, nor perfect beauty where is a main defect. My foolish, broken, blemished muse so sings, and this to mend, alas, no art is able, cause nature made it so irreparable. So, in these lines, speaker says that the way people can't expect a good speech from a schoolboy and a sweet music from a broken instrument, similarly, they should not expect from her to write about grand and lofty subjects. Like the beauty of a thing cannot be appreciated if somebody finds the main defect. Next, she says actually she blames her muse for giving her foolish and broken words. Okay, and she says that her main defect is that she is a woman. She makes this sarcastic remark to expose the patriarchal society of her time who dismiss women as being inferior to men. Nor can I, like that fluent, sweet tongued Greek who lisped at first, in future time speak plain. By art he gladly found what he did seek, a full requital of his striving pain. Art can do much, but this maxim's most sure. A weak or wounded brain admits no cure. So, in these lines, speaker compares herself with Demosthenes, a great orator from ancient Greece. The phrase sweet tongued means a good orator. Actually, Demosthenes had a speech problem as a boy, but he worked upon this defect and became a great orator. But the speaker says that she cannot repair her flaw like Demosthenes. Being a woman, she knows her limitations in the patriarchal social structure. The line weak or wounded brain means that at that time women were considered to be a weaker sex. I am obnoxious to each carping tongue who says my hand a needle better fits. A poet's pen all scorn I should thus wrong, for such despite they cast on female wits. If what I do prove well, it won't advance. They will say it is stolen or else it was by chance. So, in these lines, speaker talks about how male critics respond to her poetry. These critics think that women are more suited with needles in their hands rather than pen and books. She doesn't receive any appreciation for her intelligence and for her writing skills, and she receives the scorn of the male critics. Even if she manages to write good poems, even then her works will be dismissed by them, and they would say that she has copied the lines from somebody and from any other writer, or she has written good lines by luck or by chance. Okay. But sure, the antique Greeks were far more mild, else of our sex, why fiend they those nine? And poesy made Calliope's own child. So amongst the rest, they place the arts divine. But this weak knot they will full soon untie. The Greeks did not, but play the fools and lie. So in these lines, speaker gives example of ancient Greeks. She says that if women were so weak and inferior to man, then why Greeks had nine muses as females? She says that her critics would also dismiss these Greeks as fools and liars. They disapprove of women, writing poems. Next, she says that there is no point in arguing about whether Greeks were great or fools or whether men are more intelligent than women. She says that she is not going to wage war against man's supremacy over women. Let them be happy with the thought that they are best. But she just expects a little recognition and acknowledgement of her skills as a poet. She is not going to compete with man, but she will be contented if she gets a little bit of recognition of her talent. Let Greeks be Greeks and women what they are. Men have presidency and still excel. It is but vain unjustly to wage war. Man can do best and women know it well. Preeminence in all and each is yours, yet grant some acknowledgement of ours. So she just wants a little recognition and acknowledgement of her skills as a poet. And O ye high flown quills that soar the skies, and ever with your praise still catch your praise, if ever you deign these lowly lines your eyes, give dime or parsley wreath, I ask no base. This mean and unrefined ore of mine will make your glistering gold but more to shine. So, in these lines, speaker says that male poets are like birds enjoying the heights of the sky because they get all the praise and appreciation of their works. She makes a humble request to these poets that whenever these poets get a chance to read upon her poems, she just expects a small acknowledgement of her efforts. She would rather prefer a crown made of herbs rather than a bay to honor her as a poet. Actually, the leaves of bay tree woven into a wreath are used to honor a poet. Finally, she says that her inferior poetry would make the works of male poets look greater. And here the poem ends.